All for it. Sounds good.
So if you see me looking down, I'm basically sending the link to everyone, people to to
Great.
to 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 start watching that kind of stuff. And
Great.
excellent.
I'm just trying to fix my lighting because I don't know if it's too like. Do I look too yellow? I can't tell
Uh,
because I've.
you know what? Any
That's,
any kind of hue, any kind of color, it always reflects in. It's
yeah.
just it's balancing that out. So, but also we're indoors, so there's not much sun coming in.
I know. I'm trying to like use the right lighting for everything because I teach online everything now. So it's
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
fantastic. It's so good to hear that that you've been successful doing that. We're live. We're live now. We're
Okay.
42 seconds in.
Great.
So everybody, I want to introduce Travis Rivera. He and it's at Travis underscore Rivera underscore Studios is his handle, and I want to. Well, I also have to charge up my my iPad here. But to get things started this way, I can run and get my charger. But since we're all at home, we're basically communicating to our friends, our networks, and things like that. And this is just another way for me to introduce my friends and customers to other people who are part of my community. So this is Travis, and Travis is a I. It's been a year, I think, now since we met originally, and that was with Joe Rizzo on the Move, um, and we had Aya Nori on, incredible singer songwriter also, and you were very instrumental in helping her with her singing, I think singing techniques and vocal techniques and things like that.
Yes.
So let me pause, and I want you to explain to everyone what you do, basically what you do on a daily basis, and how you are changing the lives of people who are in our industry, who are musicians, singers, things like that, and bettering them through your work.
Thank you, Chuck. Just thank you for having me. It has been a year. It was last March, I believe. I was at Viper Studios with Aya, and we were working through vocal technique and stuff like that. And Chuck was so instrumental in letting us use his studio and doing this, which was so awesome. So I follow him pretty regularly on Instagram, and he's doing amazing things for the community. So I really appreciate this opportunity to just sit with him during this time, especially. So consider him to be a friend and a colleague, which is really awesome. So thank you, Chuck, for this. And
Thank you.
I'll tell you a little bit about what we've been up to here at Travis Rivera Studios. I've been teaching voice as a voice teacher and a voice coach for probably almost 15 to 20 years. I started when I was really young, right out of high school, and progressed in college to study music, and then did teacher certifications, taught middle school and high school music. And now I run and operate my own studio here in Long Island, with our base being not just New York and Long Island and New York City, but also expanding into other states through video conferencing with Zoom and Skype and FaceTime. So we've been doing online coaching and in-person coaching for a number of years, since 2013. But now, because of this pandemic, it has moved all of our lessons to online, as most people have gone to work online. And what we're offering right now is a little bit of help to the artist community, because I have had a whole bunch of students lose their jobs because of what's going on. A lot of artists in the community work in whether they work in the theater, or they work as a manager at retail, or they work in the food industry. They've lost their source of income. So during this pandemic, we reached out, and we are reaching out on a regular basis, offering some pretty cool free services. We have on Tuesdays from, I believe, 12:30 Eastern Standard Time to 1:30, we offer vocal technique classes for free on Zoom, where anywhere from 15 to 20 people sometimes, or 7 to 8 depending, can come in for free and listen to me talk about healthy vocal technique, healthy vocal production. And it's really good for students who lost their job and can't afford lessons at the time. It's kind of like a group voice lesson, which has really been empowering many students to do great things. And on Saturday nights right now, we're also offering some free services. We're doing songwriting workshops at 8:30 p.m. on Saturday nights, again Eastern Standard Time. It's open to the public. You just have to log in through our Instagram. So if you go to Travis Rivera, or Travis underscore Rivera underscore Studios, You can find us there, and you can just send a DM and we'll register you, and then we'll send you the Zoom link, which is free. And we have awesome stuff coming up. Actually, Aya is doing the next songwriting session, which is great. So if anybody remembers her from last year or is interested, Aya Nori is a great student of mine and also awesome performer. And she'll be running this week's workshop. And we're also offering now, starting, actually just posted today, until the end of May, 15 by 15. So they're mini voice lesson series. $15 for 15-minute one-on-one session with me to help analyze what's going on with your voice and give you some tips to help you work on it. So yeah, those are some things we're offering right now.
That's fantastic because not only are you teaching them, but sorry, you're also teaching them how to breathe, how to relax, how to move the energy, right? How to basically feel the music flowing through
Absolutely.
them. Tell us a little bit about that process because you're very successful doing that, and it's a very unique way that you're going about your your um your I guess ministering of that. You know.
Sure. The breathing, it's interesting because as a voice teacher, there's so many different methods of breathing out there. But one thing that I've come to learn from my mentors and my teachers that has been very helpful has been the Alexander technique and aspects of breathing that have been employed from Carl Stowe, which was a famous choral conductor who passed away, but he had a whole amazing, successful story on teaching people how to breathe, especially through emphysema and other
Mm,
major respiratory issues. So
right.
a lot of the breathing stuff that we use here helps students strengthen their diaphragm, expand their lungs, release their rib cage, which is proper singing technique or breathing technique for singing, but can also help others. I found out one of my students actually has the coronavirus,
Oh
and
wow.
her doctor told her to make sure she keeps singing, and if she can find a voice teacher, to take some breathing lessons because it's going to help keep her diaphragm strong and her lungs open. So she just laughed, and she's feeling well, thank God.
That's
She's
great.
doing well. But she laughed because she's like, Travis, I'm so glad that I was able to come to you and still come to you because your breathing has really helped keep my lungs open. So
Yeah.
our whole idea is to just get a sense of low, healthy breathing and recognize that air should be moving out, and that stale air, such as carbon dioxide, remaining in the lungs causes a lot more issues than people are aware of. So it definitely during this time may be helpful.
So are you asking or are you training them to like for is it 3 seconds to exhale or 4 seconds like or is it what's most comfortable for them to exhale and inhale and
The general method that I use to start, just to help people understand the exhale, is everything is done on an exhale, from speaking to singing, any form of communication. So number wise, we usually do 5 seconds in through the nose, 7 seconds out. And then we kind of increase those a little bit. We keep it around 5 seconds in through the nose and then expand it to 10 seconds out and then maybe 15 seconds out, to try to teach students to be aware that there is leftover air, even when they feel as though there's not a lot of air left in the lungs. There is a lot of residual air left. So when you slow that down, you can help them really release much better, and things will release in your body, tensions and all those things. So yeah,
yeah
general well-being as well.
right and that's been proven right that's not just from
Yes.
yeah I mean it's but I think more and more people are being conscious of that especially with Fitbits or with our iWatches or other type of watches where you do on occasion you get the breathe thing that pops up. So I think it's really interesting that technology is also empowering us to not have to think, but then it reminds us to get into that rhythm again, just to
Absolutely.
just to kind of relax and find calm and peace. Um, so if you can tell us who are your customers? Are they just music? Is it just the music industry type of people, or do you get people from all walks of life, from public speaking to teachers to other walks of life?
Sure. Most of what I do is singing for the music industry. It's a vocal voice teaching, but I have had teachers in general or
Hmm.
people wanting to learn how to speak better or use their voice better. So I am qualified to teach singing and elements of speaking, but breathing is generally the same. So most of my clients are singers, but if anybody is interested in just healthy breathing concepts and want to develop just ideas of awareness and healthy movement in the body, they can definitely reach out as well, and I could work something out for them if
Excellent.
they're interested.
Do you also encourage this for young adults, like K through 12, just to start getting
I
into the process of that?
I think K through 12 is always good, depending on what they're looking to do. If they're
Right.
looking for, there's so many different levels, I should
Hmm.
say, of interest. If they're interested in musical theater or singing or really going after music, it's different. You see that spark. But in general, I do think K through 12, it should be implemented some form of breathing and awareness of the body, kinesthetic awareness.
Hmm.
There's so many different schools out there. I study Alexander technique, but then there's Feldenkrais. There's all these other different physiological awareness to help people become in tune with their body's natural rhythm of breath and life.
Right. And do you encourage like yoga people
I
to
do.
do yoga as well? Do you
I do. I
do you?
believe.
Mhm.
Good.
No, no. I was gonna say, do you are you a teacher of yoga? Or what are they?
I'm not a teacher of yoga. No, I know a few yoga teachers. One of my voice teachers is a wonderful yoga teacher, and I focus more on Alexander technique. So the idea of Alexander technique is the mind and body rehabilitation, like understanding that our mind and body is one. So our physiology shows up through that, how we think, how we feel, how we speak. And that shows up in our breath,
Hmm.
and that shows up in our physical movements in our body and things of that nature. Alexander is very closely related with yoga. We have a
Hmm.
lot of yoga instructors that take it as well. Yoga is a little more spiritual in a
Hmm.
sense, but it does, again, help people align their body and release tension and find healthy breathing. There's so many forms of yoga, as you know.
Right.
But I do encourage yoga, and I encourage Alexander work or even Feldenkrais work, those kind of things.
Yeah. So a lot of your, thank you. I appreciate that because I was going to say, posture. Posture is really incredibly important when it comes to singing, especially to get air in that diaphragm, to open up those airways and things like that. But your part of your technique and part of your training and teaching is that you have physically. I've seen you where you've manipulated people, like, okay, you're kind of slouched, stand, put your shoulders back and those type of things. How are you doing this now? Because now we can't be because of social distancing. How do you find yourself doing this to help your students at this time?
It has been an interesting approach because now there is no physical touch or the one-on-one. But one of the things that is benefiting most of my students, if not all of them at this point, is guiding them slowly to their own awareness and teaching them how to find things in their physical body from posture or head position or breathing and things of that. It may be slower. It may be slower than we would in person, but I think slowing down in general is probably something that we all really need, especially in the learning community when
Hmm.
we're so quick that we actually lose elements that are being said in between. So by slowing down, I think what we've done, at least in lessons, is given the student the ability to feel their body
Hmm.
and feel their breathing without me manipulating them in any way, which has been extremely helpful.
Right. So do you feel that your absence of so being absent with the student has been it hasn't deterred the process, right? It hasn't negatively affected what you have to do in order to teach
No,
those
fortunately,
techniques.
it's definitely impacted them differently. Like
Hmm.
I do believe that both have their place from the physical touch to the verbal communication. But I think what's really important right now is that they're learning how to do it on their own through verbal instruction, but also through their own curiosities. So it's, if anything, it's benefited everybody because now they're asking more questions.
Mm.
Whereas when you're in person, sometimes you can demonstrate something or even manipulate something for somebody for a moment, but they don't remember how to do it. So they
Right.
come back to you looking for you to be like a vocal chiropractor. Hey,
Hmm.
can you do that again? Whereas when you are instructing them to slowly figure this out on their own and guide them to it, they will remember the steps that they physically took internally to do these things, which is actually probably the most beneficial that I've seen so far, or the
Yeah.
most benefit I've seen.
Right. Right. Because as an educator, you when you're in person, you get the you're 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 seeing things happen in real time that maybe you're not able to see. I mean, there's other distractions around you as well, but
Mm-hmm.
but being that you're now on a television, right, or on a computer, or even on your cell phone, it's almost like it's focused. It's more of a focused attention, or maybe it's also a focused attention span that maybe it enhances the lesson plans, and 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 sometimes absence of you or them might be even more powerful in a sense, you know.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that one thing about music specifically that's really important is the hearing aspect.
Hmm.
So when we're here, we have the visual or even the hands-on, But when we are in front of a computer, we have to really pay attention through listening,
Right.
because you can still see me,
Mhm.
but you may not be able to see me in a three-dimensional manner in which you will in person.
Right.
So the instruction has to now go to the ear, and then the student has to retain it. But the most important thing about hearing is, how does this land on my body when I hear it? So if I said to a student, just think of your head moving up and forward or away from your body,
Mhm.
they may have heard that in person, and I may have demonstrated it in person to help them with maybe some alignment or physiology.
Mhm.
But now they have to think about what that feels to them without me showing them, which is
Yeah.
more beneficial, and it's part of the musical process is hearing and understanding.
Yeah. So also in absence of music, how are you so are you playing piano like for your lesson plan? Are you playing piano where you are and then having them sing to you and
Yes.
with you? Like give me that process because again because of the separation.
Sure.
Yeah.
So teaching online for a number of years, I learned to deal with the delays that were in Skype, FaceTime, and all the things that have been going on. But what works again is an ear thing. So there
Hmm.
is a delay. I know that there's some new programs coming out there right now where people can play through a MIDI keyboard
Hmm.
and it shows up in real time on their end.
Right.
But it's still glitchy right now, from what I understand. It's also difficult to really work with different people all in that funnel.
Yeah.
But typically, what happens, because I'm in front of a piano now, so you can hear it.
Yeah.
So what'll typically happen is I'll be able to give a demonstration of a scale, or and then they'll sing it back to me a cappella,
Right.
and then I'll be able to hear if they went flat, sharp, or whatever vocal stuff, and then we'll move and take them through it a cappella and give them feedback. So it is
Right.
a much slower process than
Hmm.
singing along with the piano. But again, it's training the ear, because now they have to hear what I'm doing and then sing a cappella,
To
which
that.
helps the voice and the ear connect better. So almost this has been a big benefit to everybody, because they're not reliant on real time instrumentation.
Right, right. And you've noticed this in real time. Or was there a slight? Well, you've been doing this for quite a while. How many years have you been doing this over the internet of
Since
teaching?
2013.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you're a veteran right now, and obviously you've seen how the progression of technology has enhanced what you're doing and less
absolutely.
delay and those type of things.
Oh
Um,
yeah, in 2013 it was a mess. Like there would be Skype would glitch out, it would stop. You would have to do that again. Sometimes you just make a phone call out of it and hopefully you can hear it through the phone.
yeah,
But things have gotten significantly better for sure.
just to keep the process going. Yeah, and
Yeah.
are you finding that people even to today in 2020 are forgiving of technology when the call drops or when the conference drops?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's kind of built into our, I guess, our knowledge of technology,
hmm,
that especially with the phones and stuff, that things can cut out.
yeah,
So it's so funny, like during a lesson, if it cuts out, they'll call me back or
yeah.
I'll call them back, but there's no I'm sorry. It's just they'll call me back, and once we get on, they'll start singing again like nothing interrupted them. So it's become a very fluid way of being, so there's not much interruption.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. See, it's good to hear that because when other things happen, like my dog is starting to bark over here,
Mhm.
champ, it's okay. But like there's some things you can't control, and there's other things you can. And when the process breaks down, the frustration. The good thing is the community hasn't gotten. It seems like it hasn't gotten frustrated yet with the disruption at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, it'll be like, oh,
As
because of
when
the
it gets better
expectation.
and better, yeah, when
Y-
the expectation goes up. But when we have within our knowledge that things are going to cut out, we forgive the system and we just keep moving. It's almost like we
Yeah.
expect at times for things to happen. So it's like if it happens, it happens. I've never seen anybody get upset by it,
Right, right, which is
which has
good, which
been
is good. Yeah.
yeah.
So do you have customers? Do you have students outside of the New York area, like in other countries that you're training?
I have had a couple of students in other countries over the last couple of years.
Okay.
As of right now, the only student that I have out of the country is in New York,
Hmm.
but flies back and forth to Russia at times
Okay.
to see their family. But they're primarily here. But most of my students that aren't in New York are either in Florida, uh, Georgia, they're in Atlanta,
Right.
Boston, Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
New Jersey, Connecticut, and last year I had a couple in California.
In California,
So
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, so we have, because of online stuff, it is very possible, and people find me through friends or producers or online, and
Yeah.
there are plenty of other wonderful teachers doing online work as well. So
Right. Right. So if people need to, if they're obviously we encourage people to watch this program, this quick pod that I call them. How can they reach out to you to get information and how to sign up and that process?
Yeah, they can go to, you can send an email to Travis Rivera Studios, not studio, but studios at gmail.com, or you can go to travisriverastudios.com, or you can go to Instagram, Travis underscore Rivera underscore studios. So you can find those three ways on there.
Excellent, excellent. Because on this quick pod, I have your hashtag. Oh, sorry, your at Travis underscore Rivera underscore Studios. I have that as a lower third. This way, people can at least get
Perfect.
and check you out real quick on
Yeah.
Instagram
And
and
I encourage
start
them to
communicating.
send a message. Yeah, they can send a message and I'll respond for
Yeah,
sure.
I have to say, working with you or having that podcast that we did do with Rizzo on the Move, it was. I thought it was how I mean you're very accomplished with being a teacher, but also a musician. Um, but the way you go about doing it is very different from other vocal coaches or just coaches out there. And I had the great pleasure years ago to work with Marilyn Horn, and this is what she would do for the musical theater department over at Manhattan School of Music, but also just with different vocalists who were going to school there to get their masters in whether it was opera singing or whatever it had to do with. But her technique was very. There are some things that everyone does because it's the voice, the throat, the breathing, again, the posture. Those things all are everyone has them. So all coaches have to talk about these things. But I think it's the way you go about doing it, the way she went about doing it. It's all unique, and you guys are masters at this. And so that's why I'm so happy to be able to see you again, to talk with you, and also to share what your successes, but also again your the way you go about doing it, your technique to make this a reality, or to help other people who need that little help. So who or that a lot of help. So even accomplished musicians out there, they still can benefit from your work, right? I mean, would you agree?
Sure. I fully agree. And I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah.
I think that everybody can benefit from another ear to hear, right? Because ultimately, we're within our own bodies. So where our bodies become biased to what we do, even if it's wrong.
Right.
So sometimes our bodies will become so conditioned, or our muscle memory through myelin and other things like this, our body literally paves that psychological pathway that this is how I do it. So sometimes another ear can help bring to you something that you didn't know was available to you, and suddenly it feels better.
Hmm.
So or sounds better. So I would encourage anybody to reach out to me or to any kind of teacher that is good at what they do, to just have an ear to listen, because I'm never about changing somebody's voice. I'm about helping them find how it works
Right.
so that they can really take that choice themselves or go down that path themselves. Because if I try to change your voice, everybody's voice is different. So if I give you awareness of how your voice works and show you how your particular voice works, whether it's through exercises or technical things, you'll become more well acquainted with your instrument and
Hmm.
then know how to use it better. So
Right. That's awesome. And again, this very therapeutic when it comes to obviously when it comes to the COVID-19 problem with people with respiratory issues. Again, the breathing
absolutely.
techniques, those type of things. Um, um, so what would you say? How many hours would somebody have to work with you in order to see, improvement? Is it like right away, or is it within a certain amount of time?
I think it really depends on the definition of that individual's the definition of improvement to that individual.
Hmm.
Because I think after one lesson, 1 hour, if you follow what we do, you will see, even if it's the smallest inkling of improvement, something will be better. We don't
Right.
know what it is yet, but something will come to your awareness that will be better. And then in time, we can really fine tune those areas of your voice, no pun intended. But for some people, they like major changes. So
Hmm.
they need like 6 months of baby changes, and then all of a sudden an aha moment happens, and it took them
Right.
6 months. Others can take that one inkling in 2 weeks and have an aha moment. So it really depends on the individual's interest within themselves. But it can. I've seen people's voices turn around in 1 or 2 lessons, and I've worked with people for 7 or 8 years on 1 or 2 things that they understand, but they haven't physiologically found for themselves
For
yet. So
themselves.
it's
Yeah.
it depends on the person, but I can promise one thing: you will always find something that will work better for you after we've done a scale or we've done certain things. You'll find something about your voice you didn't know.
Excellent. No, that's so good. I think it's really important, and a part of the process is like, again, it's that discovery while you're working with them. You're going to find, um, you're going to find those things that need to be tweaked. And do you find that it's also that there's a domino effect that takes place with certain vocalists out there?
Oh, for sure. And people learn in so many different ways. So one of the things as a teacher that I had to learn over years is that you can pick up on usually students learning ways within the first 2 or 3 lessons. So you'll know how to find a way to give a domino effect to them.
Mm-hmm.
If they are more physiological, stick with that for a while. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's the same thing. It builds that momentum and all of a sudden they're just taking off because that's their language.
Right.
If they're more cerebral, we'll get into the textbooks. I have students sit down, they just love to look at textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, that helps them understand their voice more scientifically. And then others are more audible. They don't want to see the textbook. They don't want the physiological side of it, although we
Right.
still incorporate that. But they like to hear and then demonstrate, hear and then. So they're more audible. It really depends, but every one of those learning processes does have a domino effect. As long as the student continuously stays on the trajectory, they'll be fine.
Right, right. So, and then obviously every student that you have, well, what are the expectations that you have, or are there expectations that you have prior to them coming in and having a session with you? Is that Does that make sense?
It's yeah,
Yeah.
sure. The expectations that I have is just to come in with more of an open mind
Hmm.
and an eagerness to learn, because there are so many different methodologies out there. So there have been students that I've had that came from other teachers,
Hmm.
and we had to you know, discover vocabulary terms and what things mean on a different level. And other people have never had a lesson a day in their life, so they come in petrified,
Yeah.
afraid. So they think they need to perform for me, and that I'm going to be this judge of what they cannot do. So they're very afraid. But I think if we can get everybody, whether it's beginner or professional, to come in just with an open mind, it gives the student and myself the opportunity to get to develop a working relationship. And one of the things that we use here quite a bit is the concept of undefining things. So if you don't define your voice as bad or good,
Hmm.
and you just present it as it is, then we can find the good, even if it sounds what you may consider bad. We can find the good in there and move from there. But if you define something, whether it's bad or good, then you're only going to see through the lens of that definition. So you'll never actually grow.
Hmm.
So what I try to tell all new students when they come in is, let's take the definitions off. Let's not think about what you've heard before other singers do or what you think you can or cannot do. And let's just start from a fresh slate of where are you and
Hmm.
what can you do now in the moment? And then we can grow from there.
Yeah, because that's almost like, it seems like that's kind of the way you do it is like a master's class. They come in, you can if just from a conversation you start to kind of relax them, right? You want them to
Yep.
be themselves while they're there, while they're present, whether it's in person or on over the internet, and then from there, that's when you begin your process, and it's almost like a very surgical, very strategic way of going about doing that, where you're not wasting their time, you're not teaching them how to sing, you're just listening to them. You pretty much understand what they're giving you, because it's in real time, and then you're able to actually start to do your work, which I saw in the studio, which was, again, that's the remarkable thing. People don't really realize maybe the range that they can sing in, um, or maybe the listening to their voice and maybe getting out of their head so that they can develop those, that vocal range or whatever it may be, or to, yeah. So is how would you get someone to sing where they can really manipulate their voice and have that very vibrato, or that sexy, where they can slide down the scale without sounding like they're stepping down, but just smoothly
Mhm.
going down that. Like, what's can you share something like that, a technique?
Sure. So I'm glad that you were in some of the lessons in the past that you saw how we work, because it is very strategic. My students, they once who've been with me for a while, will always be like, it's like coming into kind of like a doctor's office for your
Hmm.
voice, because I listen and then we kind of just analyze and then we move from there, which is a lot of that's the fun of it. Like
Yeah.
that's what gives me such joy, is like what don't you see that I see that I want you to see, but you really know is there. So that's but when it comes to the technical side of things, something like that, like the legato line that you're talking about, from connection to connection. One of the most
Hmm.
important things I try to teach students, if they're looking to not move from step to step in their voice but find connection, is to recognize. the difference between consonants and vowels, and to recognize that words usually are vowel dominant, but the consonants house the vowel. So when you're singing, you have to first learn how to sing if you're looking to do that legato, vowel to vowel, right? So you can do
Right.
slides and slide exercises, and you can go to different vowels, and then slowly you can introduce kind of like clothespins. So if you imagine like a clothesline, the line is your breath and the line is your vowel, which
Right.
is the riding together. The clothespins are the consonant.
Okay.
So if you are singing, slowly introduce the consonant if you're looking for more of a traditional legato line, more that you'd find in classical music or in traditional like the bel canto school, that whole all that connection stuff. Then we deal with a lot more um, vowel training and resonance and breath training. But if you're more of a contemporary singer who's not wanting to be choppy, we use other aspects of SOVT or semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. One of them is the straw in the water with bubbles. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, no.
Where you can take, I don't know if I have anything. I do, I can show you. That's great. So there's actually something out there called the voice straws, which is a lot of fun. And what they do is they made straws based on diameter for breath support.
Okay.
And what I'll have students do is if they're more contemporary singers, this can work for classical as well. I know it does, but kind of in the contemporary world, they don't want to sound too vibrato-y and like that. This works really well because you train the breath and the sound to move simultaneously. So you can do a whole song in bubbles,
Yeah.
and the bubble shows that your breath is staying consistent
Okay.
and that your sound is staying consistent. And then you teach the student how to come off of the straw and into actual singing. So it's a very similar thing as the legato, but it's a little bit more practical for those who aren't looking for something as drastic.
Right. And the funny thing is, when we were kids, we used to do that
Yep.
in our in soda
And
and iced tea or
Yep.
whatever it
And
may
it's
be.
so funny because whenever I start with my students, especially adults, they're like, I was told not to do this. But
That's right.
they find it to be so therapeutic that they're
Yeah.
able to now do it. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm able to do this and for
Yeah.
fun, it's for my singing. So now I can have fun.
That's
So yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, and again, as adults, now we're it's okay to do things that you weren't supposed to do when you were little. It's unbelievable.
You gotta learn the rules to break them.
That's so
Right.
true. That's so true.
It's the same thing in singing to some extent. I learned a
Yeah.
lot of things in college that were wonderful for a particular style of music.
Yeah.
But then as I studied underneath other master teachers and did
Mhm.
internships and 5 years of learning with one teacher, and now I'm in another program for the 4.5,
Yeah.
there are so many technical things that you can do that would break the rules, but it's
Mm.
not bad for you. But you had to first learn the rules to understand it
Right.
and then be like, okay, now I can tweak it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
So,
get that.
so has there been certain things that you learned when you went to college that maybe are not applied anymore, or is it just that they're still there, they can still be used, but there's new techniques that have been developed?
Yeah, there's some things out there. So if you're really getting into the vocal science, um, back years ago, a lot of things were done before we had the laryngoscopies to see what was going on. So people taught from a very unique place, and some of the stuff they taught wasn't necessarily wrong, but it became kind of like dogma, like this is the right way to do this,
Right.
and if you sound or do anything that's other than this, it's not good for you.
Hmm.
But now vocal science has shown us that there's so many different ways to approach the voice in a healthy manner that some of these sounds that used to be considered bad for you are not. So for example, in college, because most educational systems are very heavily dense in classical music or traditional vocal pedagogy, they're not going to teach a singer how to use a grunty rock sound. Rather, tell the singer, don't do that because it's not good. And of course, if you do it the wrong way, it's dangerous. Just like if you make an operatic sound without being taught how to sing Puccini's Nessun Dorma, you can hurt your voice just as well.
Right.
But if you learn how to use this properly, and there's a lot of evidence out there how to do it, wonderful teachers have discovered this and vocal scientists, there are a lot of things that are still being taught in the university level that are not necessarily fact, but are outdated for sure.
Outdated. Yeah. So so are we as a species, are we changing? Like, or I mean, I, I'm trying to say this correctly. When you hear of how people sang years ago, 100 years ago, what from our earliest times of recordings to now, it sounds like, besides the music obviously developing and becoming, everyone influencing everyone's music, but or is it the expectation of what is acceptable in voice quality and in technique? Has that changed, or are we is how are we slowly over the last couple hundred years, slowly developing different different physiological changes? I don't know. Am I saying this correctly?
This, absolutely. And I'm going to try to give you a really good synopsis because this alone could be a really great podcast, like just on the voice and the
Hmm.
change of the voice. Our voice by nature is animalistic. Our voice is designed to make some of the most horrific sounds that we've never experienced in our lifetime
Oh,
because language has tamed our animalistic expression.
okay.
So our voices, in a sense, have not gotten weaker, but have not been exercised in a way to make certain sounds anymore.
Hmm.
When if we were cave people or in jungles years ago, communication would have been a very loud, screechy sound.
Right.
And our chords are designed. They can tilt down, stretch out, go into resonance, and create. That's how opera singers ping and do a ring over the orchestra.
Hmm.
There are ways that our formants and our harmonics can make a very bright forward sound without pressure that I'm sure in human design was probably more readily available when we weren't taught how to speak.
Hmm.
But over
Right.
time, we told people, shh, use your inside voice,
Yeah.
and we taught language and we taught response. So what happened is we didn't necessarily weaken the apparatus as much as just didn't use it.
I see.
So now, kind of what's happening is we went through a process of classical music and then the exploration of the voice and voice science and vocology,
Hmm.
and now we're learning how some of that was very good for that specific genre and style. In order
Yeah.
to sing that high B flat and Puccini's, like I said, in that
Mm.
Aria Nelson Dorma,
Right.
for a tenor, they had to have a specific technique to support that in a healthy manner. But a lot of the music that's coming out today is reflective of our animalistic nature again.
Mm.
There are certain growly sounds, there are certain snarly sounds, there are certain bright sounds and different formants and different frequencies that singers are able to tap into that are not hurting their voices because it's definitely present. So through that study, we're finding that the voice is capable of doing a lot more than we've limited to. We've limited because it's not strong enough to support those things. But if we train it to do it, or rather untrain it to do certain things,
Right.
it'll be able to do a lot more than we can do. But I mean, that's a very big topic, but a great
Yeah,
one at
you
that.
know, that would be awesome. That would be awesome to have another podcast with you. Not a quick cast, but a quick pod. But so people who are so singers who, or let's say the rap community, are they able to benefit from your techniques and the breathing techniques and things like that?
Definitely. I've had a
Yeah.
few rap students. I would say probably in my life of teaching 10,
Okay.
but not because it's not compliant, because what they learned, and I still have one right now who's a rap singer, but or I should just rapper,
Hmm.
but I can call it singing because anything with melody line is singing, even if it's one
Hmm.
pitch.
Right.
But rap can benefit from the breathing and
Okay.
from the legato line to really learn that even if I'm rhythmically speaking,
Yeah.
I can breathe better and I can pronunciate or articulate my words better, even if I want to use something that is not traditional clean speaking.
Right.
I can use any kind of form of word and really manipulate it so it doesn't dry out or
Mm.
strain my voice, because voice use still needs good vocal health. So
Right.
yes, rappers can definitely benefit from this.
Excellent. So what things do you say? Do you tell singers or people who are taking your lessons to stay away from, like food or smoking, vaping, any of that kind of stuff?
Sure. So food is a very interesting topic
Hmm.
because there is a diet for everybody and everything this day. So it one of the things that I love, and maybe you remember we talked about this in the past a little bit, is nutrition and health, and I love all of that, and I got into studies of that as well.
Right.
But it's very hard to pinpoint to a singer what they should and shouldn't be eating as much as experimenting. So I always tell students, take a log after you eat. What do you feel?
Hmm.
Because I've had students that can drink a glass of milk and sing and have no mucus production.
Right.
And then I've had students who can drink a sip of milk and their voice just
Mm.
blares the mucus production.
Wow.
I drink, and my voice teacher, who is a wonderful person, drinks black coffee all day and
Mhm.
water, and we're fine. But there are plenty of teachers who say don't have that much caffeine because it can dry you out. That you can't limit people. You just got to let them know if you feel dry after coffee, then your body responds that way particularly.
I see.
There are specific things that are vocal cautions or no-nos.
Right.
That would be smoking.
Mhm.
First of all, smoking, because any kind of smoke, whether it's cigarettes or marijuana or weed or any of that, it's going to immediately dry the throat. But on top of that, the particles are anti to the body, and the body responds to them to try to remove them through inflammation,
I see.
which means
Yep.
your cords are going to inflame to protect themselves, which
Mm.
puts you at a risk of vocal injury,
Right.
and your throat's going to inflame to protect itself, which is now going to increase mucus production. So you have too much mucus drying out, thickening over cords that are thickening, causing possible vocal injury. So smoking is
Wow.
really not the best. And I have a lot of students that are in the music industry and it's part of their, whether it's vaping or marijuana or weed, it's part of their thing. And I'm always trying to explain to them it's better off that you don't.
Right.
I'm not your parent, but I'm
Yeah.
going to let you know what the results are.
Yeah.
When it comes to alcohol, too much alcohol could strip the cords as well. I'm not as worried about alcohol as long as you're being cautious in your use of it.
Right.
Because if you're I always tell students, if you're on stage performing,
Mm-hmm.
don't drink before and don't drink during. Sometimes people play at like open mics and the bartender will say, here's a
Right.
beer.
Yeah.
Don't drink during, don't drink before. If you're going to have a drink, drink after, because the before or during can run a lot of risks. So if you're going to drink, drink responsibly.
Right.
I don't mean to sound like an ad, but it can
Yeah.
affect you. The biggest problem with substances like drinking or alcohol, I mean smoking, isn't just the physiological effects, it's
Mm-hmm.
the psychological aspect. Your vocal cords move part of your kinesthetic motor system. When you are under the influence of something, you're probably not moving them or utilizing them at their best.
At their
You don't
best.
recognize if
Yeah.
you're straining at that point. It's almost like numbing to the throat. You don't recognize if you're straining, if you're over speaking or over singing, and you're not aware of your own breathing. So things start to get
Yeah.
crazy in your technique, and now you're setting yourself up for possible injury.
Right, and then you're overcompensating and things like that. Yeah, which
Absolutely.
we see quite often. But
Oh
I
yeah.
think we are forgiving in those
Yeah.
in the bars or in the clubs and that type of stuff. But so listen, I know your time is valuable. So one more time, let everyone know how they can get in contact with you
Sure.
and how readily available that you may be. I'm gonna let you run with that.
Great. So you can find me on travisriverastudios.com, Travis Rivera Studios at gmail.com for email, or Travis underscore Rivera underscore studios for Instagram. You
Mhm.
can message me anywhere you'd like. And availability right now is a little tight for, so if you're looking for a lesson, you'd probably have to wait like a week or two. It's about a week to a week and a half out, but we do have free things we're offering that you can get started with on Tuesdays from 12:30 to 1:30 is technique workshops,
Okay,
and songwriting workshops are Saturday nights from 8:30 to 10:30 every week right now. So if you're
fantastic,
interested, join us on that. And if you'd like a lesson, send me a message and we'll set you up.
fantastic. Well, Travis, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful meeting you a year ago, and it seems like you're like it's like last week when we had our that original podcast with Rizzo on the Move. Continue success. I mean,
You too, Chuck.
you are definitely um, making a lot of changes, and but you're affecting change in other people's lives, and you're just bettering them so that they can do what they want to do much more easily, as opposed to having difficulty with something that God gave us all a voice, and
Yeah.
and so thank you again. I really appreciate it, and I definitely would love to have another podcast with you, talking a little bit more, like delving a little bit deeper into the mechanics and everything else that on a more uh, uh, biology level, or whatever you want to call it,
Sure.
kinetic, so that people actually understand how the voice is moving, how the vocal cords stretch, move, and how you can adjust the throat and things like that to sing and to be freer. But and maybe we can even have a student, one of your students on,
Oh yeah, sure.
that people can see the actual process by which you do it, so that they understand and feel comfortable to then contact you and to do business. So
That would be a great idea. I mean, I'm
yeah,
sure my students would love that and I would love that. So
excellent.
let me know. Thank you for having me,
You
Chuck. I
got it.
really appreciate this, and Viper Studios and all of everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. I'll see you
Thank
soon.
you.
Be well,
All right.
okay?
See you soon.
See
Thank
you
you.
soon.
You too.
Thank you. Okay. Talk to
Bye.
you soon. Bye.
Bye.
So that was Travis Rivera from Travis Rivera Studios. Definitely check him out online. He has a lot of experience, and he's been there. He does this every single day. This is his thing, and a lot of his students that I've seen online and also that I have met are incredibly satisfied with what he does and what he has done for them. And he's one of those. He's one of those constants out there that once you take his classes, you're gonna wanna you'll stay with him. It's almost like if you take jujitsu or working out in the gym and you follow through on it, you will see how quickly you benefit from his work, because he is a master. He just definitely knows how to communicate and how to get you to communicate with your voice even better. So definitely check him out, and join us for a few more podcasts later today, and but definitely contact Travis because he is a great person and also an incredible instructor. And I know you'll have years of success after joining him. So thanks again, everybody. This is Chuck from Viper Studios and Unit 3 Live, and we look forward to seeing you again on another broadcast, which is going to happen in about 15 minutes. All right, we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for joining me.